How do we greet our people here? We might give a shake hand, hug each other or kiss. This is what we do. But what happens in Japan? They never do that. Instead of that, they just bow their head to each other. When you have soup, you have to make a fearful noise. So whatever the noise you make, it should not irritate or trouble the other people in the place. The Japanese woman tied the baby at her back. When she bowed, automatically the baby also bowed to each other. Hello everyone, I'm Babita Tamaya, lecturer, Department of English, Vidhyaashram Pre-University College, the Temple of Excellence, Mysuru. In my last revision class, I had revised the poem, Heaven If You're Not on Earth. In today's session, I'll be revising the chapter 11, Japan and Brazil Through a Traveler's Eye by George Mikes. It is a travelogue. What do you mean by travelogue? Travelogue is a person, one who visits the other country and comes and shares his experience by writing a book. So today I'll be discussing the synopsis, weightage of the poem, question and answers. The writer tells us that within 15 minutes after you have landed in Japan, you will learn that the people of Japan are exquisitely well-mannered people who live on a hopelessly overcrowded island. Their living space is very limited and so they don't have any privacy, yet people's privacy in a different way. Their courtesy serves a double function. So George Mikes says, as soon as I reach Japan, within half an hour, he says that the people of Japan are well-mannered, exquisitely well-mannered people. They just respect each other's privacy. The place Japan is very small where they don't have privacy for each other, but even then they respect their privacy. Courtesy doubles the function there. For example, he says, he finds a red telephone in the streets, shops, halls of hotels, etc. And the instrument is placed on a table or a counter. They do not have space to spare for telephone booth, but only person can conduct his most confidential business transaction, even intimate love quarrels in public and in perfect privacy without being apprehensive about any passerby overhearing you. So as I told, the place is very small. You can see the red telephone placed in streets, shops, halls of hotels. So the people are overcrowded and it is a very small place and the passerby could listen what they are speaking over the phone. Whether it might be a business transaction or a love quarrel or whatever it might be, the people are least bothered to listen to the conversation. So they respect each other's privacy. But in our country, we'll be very curious to know what is the conversation going on, what is the matter, why they are fighting. We are very much towards it. But there in Japan, the people are not at all bothered. They respect each other's privacy. And here the people of Japan have a mania. Let's see what's the mania of Japan. It calls it quaint because everybody keeps bowing everybody else. He remarks that people bow to each other with a great deal of natural and inimitable grace. He comments that though bowing is like shaking hands or kissing the cheek, it is quainter, more formal, more oriental, but also infectious. How do we greet our people here? We might give a shake hand, hug each other or kiss. This is what we do. But what happens in Japan? They never do that. Instead of that, they just bow their head to each other. This is how they greet. But for them, it is very easy because they are used to it. The people who goes from one country to Japan, they find it very difficult to follow it. The writer tells us that the Japanese have a complicated hierarchy in bowing. Who bows to whom, how deeply and for how long. Then the author cites an incident that happened in America. So as I told, for the people of Japan, it is very easy, but for others, it is very difficult because it is a complicated hierarchy. We doesn't even know who bows first and who stands straight and how long to bow each other. For them, it is very easy and they don't feel it complicated thing. And he just says one of the incidents that happens in America. He tells us that one of the American states, there was a traffic law which laid down if two cars met at an intersection, neither was to move before two other had gone. So if the two cars met each other in one particular point, it is that one have to move first. It is not that both of them can move together. This is what they follow. The author uses this incident to tell us that similarly in Japan, if two Japanese bow, neither is to straighten up before the other stands erect in front of him. So here, two Japanese are standing together, both bow each other and they have to wait until the one person stands straight. So this is the mania in Japan. Though it sounds a little complicated for us in the sense the people who go from other country. The author tells us that the Japanese manage it without difficulty. For them, it's very simple. And even the smallest difference in rank, standing age, social position would subtly reflected in that split. Whether you're rich or poor, whatever it might be, whether you're elder or older, they show their gratitude and respect to each other in the same without making any differentiation. So there are some rules in the family that they have to follow in Japan. Let's see what are the rules. The wife bows to her husband, the child bows to his father, younger brother to elder brother, and sister bows to all the brothers of whatever age. So this is the rules that they have to follow in the family. Wife to husband, child to the father, younger brother to the elder brothers, and sister, she should bow for each and everyone, whether it might be an elder or younger, whoever it is, she should bow to each and everyone in the family. Next, he narrates his experience on a fast train between Tokyo and Osaka. He tells us that the two conductors march to the middle of the coach, bow ceremoniously to each other in the directions, and then they start checking the tickets. So what does the conductors do here? Before starting the train and before checking the tickets, both of them come to the mid of the coach, they bow to each other, then they move forward and they start checking the tickets. He tells the reader that in one of the parts of Nara, he bought a pack of food for deer. So which is the animal mentioned in this chapter? It is deer. The deer came up to him, looked into his eyes and bowed deeply. So one of the part in Japan, that is Nara, he could find a deer. So what did the narrator do? George Mikes. He just carried a food packet for the deer. Before the deer snatching the food packet, it just bowed deeply to the author, George Mikes, and he snatches his food packet and goes. So here, looking into the people of Japan, even the deer also have followed the same custom or the same mania. He ends his travelogue on Japan with his humorous observations about soup eating in Japan. So till now, we heard that the Japanese people are well-mannered, exquisitely well-mannered. But when it comes to the bus stop, so when the bus has come and stopped in a place, the people rush like anything. They elbow each other, they stamp each other, and whatever the custom, the mania they follow, everything they'll forget there. And one of the very important thing, that is having soup in Japan. According to the Japanese, when eating soup, you must make a fearful noise. Only then you will be appreciated. So how do we have soup? Do we make sound? No. But in Japan, when you have soup, you have to make a fearful noise. So whatever the noise you make, it should not irritate or trouble the other people in the place. Why they make a sound or that fearful noise, in the sense, the person, whoever have served you the soup, you're appreciating them by making a fearful noise. And there is one more thing, that if the soup eater does not make a noise, his hostess will think that the guest is an ill-mannered lout. So if you doesn't make a sound and have soup, then the hostess, one who have served you the soup, they will call you, or they will think that you are an ill-mannered lout. On the other hand, if the guest makes noise while eating soup, she will think that he is not reasonably well brought up European because he makes such a disgusting noise. That is what I told prior. So when you have a soup, you have to make noise, but it should not disturb, or it should not be so very disgusting noise. You make such disgusting noise and trouble the other people at the restaurant, even then you will be called as an ill-mannered lout, and you are not a well-brought-up European. Next, the speaker speaks about the traffic in Brazil. The author narrates his experience while walking as a tourist through the streets of Copacabana. He says very casually, nobody hurries in Brazil. It's in inverted commas. So the people in Brazil, they don't even hurry up. Then he sarcastically adds, if does not really matter whether you reach your destination an hour soon, a day late, or not at all. So what we do, if you are late to this college, or if you are late to the school, late to the office, we'll just rush to the office, school or college. But here the people are least bothered. If they don't reach their destination within an hour, and if it is a day late and they don't go at all, it doesn't matter to them. So such kind of a people are Brazil. The grave pavements in the streets are often decorated with beautiful black mosaics. So very important. The people of Brazil have too much of leisure time. Whenever they have leisure time, what they do? They just decorate the pavements with black mosaics. The number of motor vehicles is growing by leaps and bounds, as if they were distributed free of charge to all and sundry. He remarks that it is not that drivers do not care about the pedestrians. So here, the motor cars are extremely expensive in Brazil. But the speaker, that is George Mike, feels that if it is too very expensive also, he says that as if the motor vehicles are given free of cost, because the traffic is so very worst in Brazil. And he also says that, he remarks that it is not the drivers who do not care about the pedestrians. So whoever is having a vehicle, that is a four-wheeler, they target the pedestrians. Once they sit inside the driving seat, they target the pedestrians. It doesn't mean that they don't care, but that is the people, what do you find in Brazil? As soon as the pedestrian step out of the pavement, the driver considers him as a fair game. He takes aim and accelerates. The pedestrians had to jump, leap and run to dear life. So once the person who is in a driving seat, when he sees the pedestrians crossing the road, what does he do? He aims them and he gives the acceleration and he moves his vehicle very fast. The pedestrians have to save for his dear life. He has to jump, bound and cross the road to save his life. The pedestrians, one who has saved his life, what does he say? Today it's your day, tomorrow it might be, and you have to face the same situation. And there is one of the very worst place in Brazil, that is Avenida Presidency, where the traffic is too very horrible. And here, when the author is in that busy traffic, it takes an hour or a day to move from one corner to the other corner. So when he is in such a horrible situation, he finds one of the person in a traffic, the other one without any traffic on the other side. He finds his friend and he just yells at him saying that, how did you reach from this place to the other end? So the other person from the other end says that, I was born and brought up here. To hear this, it might be very funny, but the traffic in Brazil is too very horrible. That too in the place Avenida Presidency. This is about the chapter Japan and Brazil. Now let's see the weightage of this chapter. From this chapter, you'll be having 1 mark and 4 mark. So the weightage of this chapter is for 5 marks. Moving on to the 1 mark question answers. What is a man's castle in Japan? It is a telephone receiver. What is the one common thing that you notice when you step into Japan? That is bowing. Who do the Japanese stores employ? They employ bowing girls. So when we go to any restaurants or the mall in our country, you can see a man in an Indian attire welcoming you. But in Japan, when you go, you can see the girls. So whom do they employ? They employ only bowing girls to welcome the people, whoever comes to the restaurant or the malls. What is the sign of appreciation while having soup? Making a fearful noise. How are the streets of Copacabana decorated in Brazil? Decorated with beautiful black mosaics. What are extremely expensive in Brazil? Motor cars are extremely expensive. Whose life is becoming more hazardous in Brazil every day? It is the pedestrian's life. Name the animal mentioned in the chapter Japan and Brazil through a traveler's eye. It is deer. Exquisitely well-mannered people refers to Indians, Japanese, Americans. It is the Japanese. How are pavements in Brazil decorated? Decorated with beautiful black mosaics. What is the special about babies carried in Japanese style on their mother? So here, whenever mother bows, babies bow too. The Japanese woman tied the baby at her back. When she bowed, automatically the baby also bowed to each other. This is the special thing which is carried about in Japan. Which is the worst place in Brazil for pedestrians? As I told, Avenida Presidency, Vargas. Which is the worst place in Brazil for pedestrians? Again, it's the same answer, Avenida Presidente Vargas. It may be asked in 2 different ways. How many times do the drivers force other drivers to commit heinous crimes every day? It is 20 times. So here the traffic in Brazil are too very worse and the people aim at the pedestrians and they overtake the vehicle, and if the crime happens, there is no man hooting, hitting each other, nothing. They just smile at each other and move away. What will the hostess think if a fearful noise is not made while eating soup? She feels or she thinks that he is an ill-natured man. Why is pedestrians' life becoming more hazardous every day in Brazil? Because the number of vehicles is growing by leaps and bounds. Who do the drivers look out to for when they are driving? They look out for pedestrians because the pedestrians has to jump, leap and run for his dead life. Let's see the 4 marks question. A man's telephone receiver is his castle. Explain. Japanese are exquisitely well-mannered people. The people living in overcrowded island do not respect any privacy. Honest has a double function. It is courtesy and it is substitute privacy. For example, the little telephone is situated on a table or on a counter as there are no space to spare for booths. Still, most confidential business transaction, intimate love quarrels conducted in publics yet in perfect privacy. Anybody, any passerby could not listen in. A man's telephone receiver is his castle. Speaking loud, you might fight, whatever it is, but they don't even bother or listen about their conversation. They respect their privacy. Next question. How does George Mike describes bowing to be a quainter and infectious trait of Japanese people? In Japan, bowing mania strikes travelers. Everybody keeps bowing to everybody else with a natural and inimitable grace and solemnity of a courtier. Bowing is quieter, formal, oriental, and also infectious. It is neither less nor more silly than shaking hand or kissing the cheek. The Japanese have a complicated hierarchy in bowing. Who bows to whom, how deeply, how long. Early traffic law in one of the American states that if two cars met an intersection, neither was to move before the other had gone. Similarly, if two Japanese bow, neither is to straighten up before the other stands erect in front of him. It is little complicated to us, but they manage it without difficulty. Even the smallest difference in rank, standing, age, social position will be subtly reflected in bowing style. The basic rules inside the family, that is the wife, bows to her husband, child to his father, younger brother to elder brothers, sister bows to all the brothers of whatever age. Japanese stores employ bowing girls whose only duty is to bow deeply and affectionately. The deer has a true Japanese bow to the visitors and then jump and snatch the food back from the hand. The two conductors in the famous and fast Tokaido line between Tokyo and Osaka march to the mid of the coach, bow ceremoniously in both directions, and then they start checking the tickets. Eating soup was more dangerous than almost anything else. When eating soup, they must make a fearful noise as a sign of appreciation. If not, the hostess will think that you are an ill-natured man or you are an ill-mannered lout. And making too very disgusting noise also you'll be known as or called as ill-mannered lout and not a well-brought-up European. Next question. The traffic in Brazil leads to humorous observation. Explain. George Mike says that nobody hurries in Brazil. Reaching their destination an hour early, a day late, or not at all does not matter. Their grave pavements in the streets are decorated with black mosaics. People who have plenty of time, that is plenty of leisure time, could do so during the meditative ambulatory exercises. These leisurely people love speed driving. Gaining a 10-second is matter of grave importance for all of them all the time. Motor cars are extremely expensive in Brazil. The number of motor vehicles in Brazil is growing rapidly and the pedestrian's life is becoming risky. He has to jump, leap and run for his dear life. The drivers do not care about them. As soon as the driver notices a pedestrian step off of the pavement, he regards him as fair game. He takes aim and accelerates. Neither the pedestrians nor the driver resent this in the least. The hunter and the prey smile ambiguously to each other. If the driver wins once, the pedestrians get the chance to win next. The war between drivers themselves is murderous but good-tempered. As it told, once the pedestrian saves his life, he turns back and says to the man, "Today it's your time, tomorrow it might be in the car and you on the road as a pedestrian." There is no anger, no hostility, no man hooting. They like even when there is a cut in, overtaking and commit all the most heinous crimes off the road and crossing the road 20 times every hour. The traffic is so terrific that the pedestrians feel that it is their second birth. So they make heinous crimes more than 20 times in an hour, but even then there is no man hooting, nothing. They smile at each other and move away. In my next revision class, I'll be revising the chapter The Otter. Have a good day. Thank you.